All right. Well, you know what? I've got 105 my time. I know that we have folks joining us from all different time zones, but I've got 5 after. So let's go ahead and kick things off and get started with this session. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. So excited to talk to you about CS First. In a second, I'm going to check in with you and see what your knowledge of CS First is, see if you know anything about it or if you are brand new. But first, I want to introduce myself and my colleague Kelly. We both work for a company called 5-Star, but we are here representing Google. Our company is a partner, premier partner with Google for Education, and Kelly and I are both Google certified trainers. Everyone on our PD team at 5-Star, we are all licensed educators. So this is something that we have actually used in the classroom. So hopefully that speaks to how much we love CS First. I wanted to start with this icebreaker. This is one of my favorites, and it does not have to reveal your age, so don't feel as if it does. What I would love for you to do is in the chat, if you could drop a number to tell us which of these phones best represents you and why. So again, it doesn't have to correspond with the phone that is tied to your age. I'll give you an example. I always say that I'm number 1. Because it's a little weird, a little quirky, and not for everyone. I've had people tell me that they're number 6 because they're an open book and they're transparent. So again, in the chat, let us know which of these you are. Yes, the physical keyboard, Brian, absolutely. It's so funny to think about. You know, we think about kids not knowing about like a rotary phone, but even like a physical keyboard, I know my kids at home have never experienced that on a phone. Vintage items, absolutely. My parents held on to things as long as they worked. So when I was growing up, we had rotary phones, and my friends were just amazed by them, but they worked, so we kept them. Yes, 5 is a car phone. Do you remember those bag phones? I remember going on my first date as a teenager. My parents sent me with a bag phone. It was, at the time, it wasn't mortifying, but in hindsight. Okay, well, thank you all. 6 was your dream phone? Absolutely. So cool. All the cool kids had that phone. Just having a phone line in your room, wasn't that just the coolest thing? Okay, so now that we know a little bit about you, based on which phone you would choose, we would love to know, what is your role in education? Your role in education. Are you a classroom teacher? Are you a coach? Do you work in administration? Future teacher? Media specialist? Yes. A program manager for Google. Of course, we're happy you're here. State support. We've got a K-5 CS teacher. I love it. Second grade C. Oh my gosh. I love teaching the littles computer science. This is going to be fun. Okay, high school. That's where I started out as well. Okay. Okay, one more question, and then I promise I'll stop asking you questions, and I'll give you some information. Give us a number in the chat to tell us, what is your level of experience with CS First? So if you are a number 1, that means you've never heard of it, or this is your first exposure to it. Number 4 means like, oh, you could be leading this session. This will help me know what content to deliver to you today. Okay. Well, hopefully, even those of you who are number 3s, we have something a little new to show you that I'm really excited about. It's my first time presenting on it because it's so new. So again, hopefully, even if you have some experience, you'll learn some new things today. One final plug before we get into this. If you are active on social media, we have a ton of handles and hashtags for you to use. And Kelly put those in the chat for you. So if you just want to copy and paste those into a tweet to share your learning about CS First, I want to see it. I'm sure, the conference organizers want to see it, and Google wants to see you sharing everything that you have learned. And you can use these in the future. If you use this with kiddos and you want to share out their work, you can use these hashtags to keep the conversation going. Okay, now to our content. What to expect. Hopefully, the goal is by the end of this workshop, you will understand how to get set up in CS First and how to have a class, add some students, and add some content. We'll talk about how to integrate that curriculum into what you already do, and we'll give you an overview of the resources that are available to you. One of my favorite things about Google in general is when they provide you with a tool, you get tons of free resources. So I will point all of those out. And as I mentioned, that new and exciting preview of an update to CS First. So that again is something that you might not have seen before. So for those of you wondering, what is CS First? What is this program from Google? First of all, it's free. That's my favorite word to use. It is a free computer science curriculum, and it teaches coding to students. Now, let me say this, and this is a caveat. This was designed for grades 4 through 8, but I know this session is titled K through 8. So for my first, second grade teachers who are here, if anyone teaches younger than that, or even third grade, or even high school, don't worry. I have personally used this with first grade and with high school as well. So it can be modified to fit the needs of all of your learners. It's also great because if you have no coding experience or your students have no coding experience, this is a great place to start. Coding can be really scary for a lot of educators. I'm a former art teacher, so before CS First, I had no coding experience. So this is how I got started. And it's great for your kids to get started as well. And it is freely available online. So it's an online curriculum. You can access it easily from any device. So let's talk about all of the great standards that this is aligned to. So we know computer science standards are something that we're seeing a greater and greater push towards all across the country. So the curriculum that was developed for CS First is aligned to a variety of standards. So if you're teaching CSTA standards or ISTE standards, or even AASL standards, or if your state has created standards that are aligned to these, you are in luck. For instance, I'm in Indiana. Our standards are really closely aligned with those CSTA standards, so this curriculum works really well for our educators. Now, before I keep going, I know I'm talking so fast about this. I just get so excited. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me, throw them in the chat. Someone will flag me down and say, hey, Amy, answer this question. So I don't want you to think I'm just talking at you. We're going to get you into this curriculum really soon. Okay. Now, teaching computer science is obviously something we love, or else we wouldn't be here today. But there are so many other things that we need to teach our students. And we know there is so little time to teach them everything they need to know. So with CS First, we can also teach students like how to be courageous and try new things. As I said, coding can be scary, and we can model for our students that, you know what, I've never done coding before, or maybe I don't feel like I'm that great at coding, but I'm going to try this alongside you. And we can make our students more confident as well, and teach them how to persevere. We're going to see that CS First emphasizes that debugging mindset. I know one of my pet peeves with my kids at home is when they try something and the first time it doesn't work and they're just like, it doesn't work. No, we want them to persevere and we want them to struggle and get through things. So that's what I love about this platform. It really encourages that. Students will also learn about community, careers, how CS relates to all aspects of life, and it's going to help us provide a sense of belonging in tech for our underrepresented students. Now let's talk about how these lessons work or how the curriculum looks. Now this is just a bird's eye view. We are going to zoom in just a bit, and you will actually get into CS First as a teacher, so you'll be able to browse these. These lessons, the standalone lessons, as you can see on my screen, they're about an hour long. Sometimes they can be completed more quickly. This is a great place to start if you're not quite sure how much time you have to commit to this platform. All of these lessons are designed for beginners. So let's say you just have a spare day at the end of a unit. Maybe it's like the day before a break and you're trying to find something for students to do. These 1 hour lessons are a great thing to just plug in and see how they go. Then if you really love these standalone lessons, then we can move into the multi-lesson units. So these are bigger units that are based on a theme, and these units have 8 lessons within them. So you can see in this GIF that these are going to take a lot longer, 8 to 12 hours. Obviously, you're not going to do these all at once, but this could be spread out over 9 weeks, over a semester, however you see fit with your students. But these are, some of them are introductory, but some of them go into more intermediate skills as well. We also have some advanced lessons for students who really excel at CS. Okay, what do students do? This is what students see. Students are going to be using Scratch for CS First. So I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with Scratch. They are also going to experience videos and directions that walk them through every step of the process. You do not have to create the lesson. You do not have to create the video. You are just there to facilitate for your students. That might look like introducing the lesson, framing it for students, walking around and assisting your learners, or even sitting down with them and going through the curriculum. That's what I like to do. So that way it's easier for me to help them debug if they get to a problem, because I might have experienced it myself. Now you heard me mention Scratch for CS First. If you have been in CS First in the past, previously, we had to have students, when they got into CS First, they would kind of leave CS First and go into Scratch. And it just made it a little bit more difficult for students to manage projects and make sure they had things saved correctly. But not too long ago, Google made an update for this. And now we have this new version of Scratch called Scratch for CS First. This makes it a lot easier for students to save their work and share it with you. So I can show you that when we get into the platform in just a second. Just for my benefit as we move forward, I would love for you to tell us in the chat, what is your experience level with Scratch? So are we brand new to Scratch? Have we used it before? Okay. Okay. Scratch Junior. Okay. So it sounds like we have a basic understanding of Scratch. It's a block-based coding platform, as you can see, and we're going to get into Scratch for CS First, so you will kind of see exactly what that looks like in just a second. Thank you for sharing that with me in the chat. Okay, as I mentioned, enough talking. Let's get into the platform. So I'm going to ask Kelly to drop a link in the chat. You can go ahead and click on that link in the chat. And when you do, you will be taken to the CS First homepage. Now, if any of you have trouble accessing that, let us know. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page so I don't leave anyone behind. And the way we're approaching this today is we're going to get you in as a teacher and get you set up as a teacher. But the really cool thing about this platform is even as a teacher, you can play as if you were a student. So you can kind of see both sides of things in that way. Now, once we are here, we're going to look for this blue sign-in button at the top right. I will let you know, sometimes when your screen gets like a little compressed, maybe if you are doing side-by-side windows, that button might jump down to the bottom of your screen. So if you're missing that sign-in button at the top right, you might just have to expand your window. Now, as I mentioned, you are going to be joining as a teacher, but just as a little preview, this is the process your students will go through in order to join CS First. They'll click that same blue button. They would simply choose I'm a student instead. But let's go ahead and choose I'm a teacher. Here you can select your Google account or input your Google account if you're not already signed in. This can be your school account, whatever account you're going to be using to teach. And again, if anything doesn't work for you or if I'm going too quickly, just let us know. Now, if you have never been in before, you're probably going to get this survey. And it's really quick. Sometimes when people hear survey, they think it's going to take a while. Really quick, just asking, why you're registering for CS First and how you heard about it. So take a couple seconds and fill that out if you're seeing it. If you've been in before, you probably won't see that. Now, another thing you might see after you complete that survey, again, if you are brand new or maybe if you haven't been in for a while, you might get a pop-up that lets you know that you can now sync your Google Classroom to CS First. That is something you can turn on or off at any time. For the sake of consistency, I usually tell participants to just click not now and just move past that for the time being. But I will make sure to point out how you can enable that a little bit later in case you are a Google Classroom teacher. All right, so now I'm going to switch over to my actual dashboard so you can see I have a ton of classes. Some of you might have some classes or you might not be seeing any classes here. What we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a class. I always like to create a class, get my content in there, and then add my students, just so when students are added, they see that there's actually something there for them. So that's kind of the model we're going to follow. So up here at the top right, you will see this create a class button. You will also see this giant blue circle with the plus sign at the left. Both of those buttons do the same thing, so choose your own adventure. Now, I'm getting this option to import my classes from Google Classroom because I do have that turned on, but you'll see if I scroll past this huge list of my classes in Google Classroom, at the very bottom, it says create a class without using Google Classroom. And that's what I'm going to do for now. You do not have to use this classroom that we're creating in the future. In fact, I'm just going to label mine Sandbox. And then I think I'm going to put Summer 22. Just so I know what this is. You're welcome to do the same. Or if you want to title it for next year for your students, you can do that too. Yes, you can connect your classroom later. Now, it will not connect to this class. You have to connect before you create a class, which is why I might just do a Sandbox for now. But yes, I'll show you how to turn that connection on in a little bit. Okay, we're going to choose a class color. And then I want to talk to you about this. How should students sign in? Again, I want to kind of go back in time a little bit. In the past, students only had one option, and it was this second option, CS First accounts. That meant that students got a unique username and password that was in no way tied to their Google account. That had to do with the fact that CS First was sending information to Scratch when Scratch was an external tool. But now that Scratch has been integrated, we don't have to worry about that security issue so much. So students can now join with their Google account, which I think is so much easier. It's a single sign-on option, so we do not have to worry about those extra usernames and passwords. That being said, if your students don't have Google accounts, that's okay. You could still use this old-fashioned method where students would create a username and password in CS First. And if that applies to anyone, just let me know a little bit later and I can definitely show you how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and choose Google Workspace for Education accounts. Again, it makes it easier on my students. And then I'll choose Create Class. If you're having any trouble creating a class, feel free to let us know. And now what we're going to do is we're going to explore the platform as a student. So we are going to click on this Add Units button. That will take us to the curriculum. But as you can see, I always tell people in Google there is more than one way to do the same thing. So you choose the way that makes the most sense to you. You can choose the blue Add Units button. You can choose Add CS First Units down here at the middle. Or you can click on this Curriculum tab at the top left. They'll all take you to the same place. So let's go ahead and choose one of those. Now, once we are on the curriculum page, we're just going to do some scrolling. And we're going to scroll past this new unit, but we will come back to that because I'm so excited to talk to you about that. We're going to keep scrolling until we get to the 1 hour lessons. These are what I mentioned would be a great starting spot, a great filler if you're just not sure of when or how you would use this. I would love for us to all look for the same lesson, just so we're all kind of having the same experience for now, but I will give you time to explore on your own in a little bit. We are looking for Code Your Hero. It is underneath, again, it's under these 1 hour lessons, but you'll notice it's also kind of under this subset that says Hour of Code. So we're looking for Code Your Hero. Now, let me tell you right here, if I know I want to assign this because maybe I do it every year, I can go ahead and click this Add to Class button and go ahead and assign it. But like I said, you can explore as a student, and that's what I want you to be able to do. So let's click the blue button that says View instead. Now, once we're in this view, this is exactly what your students see as well. They will see the ability to start. They will see an overview with examples. The only thing they won't see is the ability to add it to a class because they're not in charge of a class. But everything else is pretty similar. So let's go ahead and click on that star button. And what I'm going to do is I am going to give you 5 minutes to do a few things. I want you to watch the video, which is about 4 minutes. I want you to explore the instructions. You are welcome to click on this starter project. Maybe take a look at the transcript, some of the video features. After that 5 minutes, we are going to spend another 5 minutes in Scratch. So don't feel like you have to get that far. If you just want to stay on this page and you don't want to click on the starter project yet, that's okay. I will walk you through that part as well. So I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. And again, I will let you explore this page and watch that video. All right, so now that you had 5 minutes to explore on this page, if there was anything that stood out to you as, oh, that's interesting, or I didn't know it could do that, let us know that in the chat. While you're sharing those things, I'm going to point out my things that really stand out to me about this part of the platform. First of all, we obviously have the ability to switch languages very quickly and easy right up here at the top right. And speaking of language and being able to utilize that as a support for our learners, we also have this transcript at the bottom left. So if we click on that transcript, one thing that's really great about this is it moves through the transcript as the video plays. And speaking of the video playing, we can also adjust the playback speed. So over here at the bottom right-hand corner, we have the ability to change this to faster or slower. And just above that, I think this is one of the coolest features and it's kind of hidden. Under these three dots, when we see these three dots, it always means to click there because there's something really great hiding. We have the ability to do picture-in-picture as well as to download, turn on captions, and again, another place to adjust that playback speed. If you're wondering what picture-in-picture does, it will pop the video out into its own little window, and that window will follow students. So when students click to open a new tab to go into Scratch, that little window will come with them. So they don't have to hop back and forth between tabs. So that's a really great feature. Yes, Brian, I love the amount of representation that we have in this platform. So important. Yes, instructions, highlighting, showing you where to click. The visuals, yeah. That's another great thing. Let's talk about that. When you have students who might be struggling, we can refer them back to those videos. And it's probably really important that we teach our students how to watch a video well, right? Some of my students, and I've been guilty of this, you put a video on and then you kind of zone out and you're like, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? So maybe having students watch together and then explain to their partner what they saw to really make sure they're paying attention to that video. But of course, they can always go back. If I were doing this with students and it was the first time we were doing CS First, or if I were doing this with younger students, we would watch this video together and we would pause throughout and we would talk about it. I think that's one way to make it really accessible to our younger students. Okay, so now that we've watched the video and we've explored this page, let's go ahead and click on that starter project at the bottom right. This is going to open a new tab and this will open Scratch for CS First. Now, again, if you are familiar with the older version of Scratch that we used within CS First, there was a button at the top that said Remix. I always like to say that was the equivalent of Save As. Students had to remix or make a copy of their template before they started working, or else they couldn't save their work. And a lot of times they would forget to do that. We don't have that problem here, so that's a great new feature of Scratch for CS First. Now, this is another thing, especially with littles, that I would have them do together with me, maybe even in small group. We would watch the video and maybe do a step or two at a time. So I'm going to give you another 5 minutes now that we're in the platform. Feel free to continue on. So if you are ready to move on to the next video, or even maybe you get to an add-on, we have all of these add-ons at the bottom, which is a great way to give students some choice, which we know that when we give students choice, their engagement goes way up. Okay, so another 5 minutes, this time playing a little bit more in Scratch, rewatching or moving on to an add-on video. All right, so now that you've had 5 minutes to play in Scratch, I want to show you how to kind of wrap this part up. And then I want to talk about ways we could modify this or modify a different lesson to work for our younger students. So I've already done a little bit of the activity here in Scratch. I worked alongside you. As I mentioned, students in the past had to remix. Now their projects are automatically saved, but just in case, before closing out, I like to have my students do File, Save Now, just to make sure any last minute changes are saved before they close out. You know, sometimes students are so quick at closing out of a tab. They can also change the title of their project just so it's a little bit easier for them and for you to find. You will notice that to the right of that title, it does say For Code Your Hero, so that will be attached to the title. So I might just call this Amy's Project featuring Janice. Then, like I said, just give it a save now. Students do not have to turn it in. They don't have to send it to you. As a teacher, you will have access. I will show you the teacher side of this in just a second, but I would love to know if you all have any ideas of how what we just did could work with younger students. So how could we make this project accessible to our littles? Any ideas? Share those in the chat. And I do see your question, how do I start a lesson? If you want to start as a teacher or a student, let me know which exact one you mean and I can walk you through that. Yeah, whole group lesson. We could all do this together for sure. Oh, you were not able to play. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So let's see. Were you able to get to welcome. Were you able to get to this screen? Yes. Okay. Down here at the bottom right, do you see where it says Starter Project? Yes. Okay. That's where you're going to click. And when you do, it will open Scratch for you. And then this is where you complete all of those directions that we were getting in the video. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry I didn't catch that earlier. Okay. Yeah, unplugged ideas on directionality. For sure. We've also seen, one of my favorite things is we have seen older students work with younger students. We have seen this used, actually during the school day, maybe a 6th grade class, they go down and they work with the 1st grade class. Maybe again in whole group, small group. We've also seen it used as an after school activity. Same thing, older students working with younger students, pre-service teachers, assisting younger students in an after school program. But as I keep mentioning, I know I've said this 100 times, in a second, I'm going to show you a really cool new lesson to CS First that I think might be just the thing you're looking for with your littles. But first, I want to show you the data that I get as a teacher because I think that is so interesting. Okay. So just watch my screen for now because you're probably not going to see this on your end unless you've used CS First in the past. Okay, I'm going to go up to my dashboard at the top right, and I am just going to select one of my classes, and I'm going to choose one that is from a while back just because I know that I have students who have been working in this class. So once you get your students enrolled and once they start working, we are going to get so much information. So on my screen, you will see a breakdown of progress summary for every unit I've assigned. So we just completed Code Your Hero, but you can see this group also was assigned another unit. And at a glance, I can tell how far along they are. So that lets me know, oh, I need to give them more time to work, or hey, some of them are finished and they're going to need something else to work on. I can drill down into this by clicking on Activities Viewed, Projects Submitted, or survey results. At the end of every unit, there's a survey, and that's what that's referring to. I spend most of my time in these first two. So when I click on activities viewed, it is going to show me how far my students have progressed through a unit. And one thing I do want to point out is it does have both the English and Spanish version. So it's important to pay attention to these numbers more so than the percentage. Because for this student, it says they've only completed 50% of the activities. But if you notice, they have completed both of the activities in the language of their choice. So I always like to look at those as opposed to that percentage. Now you'll notice over here at the left, I'm not seeing student names. That's because with this class, it's an older class and students had to sign up with CS First accounts. If you bring your students in through Google Classroom or have them sign up with their Google accounts, you will be able to see their names. I'm going to back up and just show you what happens when I click on Projects Submitted. This is where I see my student work to grade it or to just enjoy all of the things they've created. So you can see I have the Code Your Hero, and at this point I only have one project that's created, but I can click on it to launch it in Scratch. And I would be able to see everything that my students have done. And right up here at the top, it says I'm viewing this only. So as a teacher, I can't accidentally change their work. Now, before I show you how to add students, I want to finally show you that brand new feature that I have been hinting at. So now I want you to drive alongside me. So in your tab where you have CS First open, let's go ahead and click on Curriculum. If you have Scratch open, you can close that tab or leave it open. It's up to you. Okay. And now as I scroll down, here's where I see test our newest unit. This is something that's still in preview, so Google is still actively seeking your feedback. And I'll show you where you can give that in a second as well. Let's go ahead and view this lesson. So let's click on that blue button for View Lesson. And now you'll see below, we have this little green pop-up that we didn't see earlier. After you work through this, you can take the survey to let Google know your thoughts and what you would like to see maybe different or more of in the future. Let's go ahead and click the Start button. And what you're going to notice is this automatically launched in Scratch. So we skipped over the videos. And you'll also notice this little tray in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, I've already started this. That's why I'm advanced a little bit into the activity. This is probably what you saw when you first landed here. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to play here. And after you're done or while you're working, tell us in the chat what you are noticing, maybe how this is different than the other lesson we looked at, or how it might be better for younger learners. All right, you've got about a minute left of this explore time. Go ahead and start telling me in the chat what you noticed about this. Absolutely. And I know as a learner, I need that. I'm so tempted to try to watch a whole video and then do all the steps, but I forget. So that really scaffolded and that chunking is so helpful for me. I know. Yes, especially our learners. Yeah. Oh, limiting the blocks available. That is a great piece of feedback, Brian. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I would love to give you more time to play, especially in that new edition, but I want to make sure I get to everything I promised you. So I'm just going to back up until I get back to CS first and back to this lesson. And again, just as a reminder, that feedback you've been sharing or as you continue through, that is available for you to provide right here underneath that lesson. Now, I'm going to wrap up by showing you how to add this to a class, how to add your students, and where you can get help. I know that seems like a lot in a short amount of time, but these are some of the easiest parts of the platform. So feel free to shift your focus to my screen and I'll show you these. So once you find a lesson you would like, for instance, this lesson or the other lesson, you simply choose this Add to Class button. Okay, so when I click on that, it is going to show me all of the classes I've created. And I'm just going to look for my sandbox that I made just a second ago. There we go. And I can add it to more than one class at a time if I teach lots of sections. And then I simply click Add to Class, and that's it. From there, I can view the curriculum if I want to play, or I can view the class. I'm going to go ahead and choose View Class because I need to come to my class anyway in order to add my students. Another way to add your students or to get back to this page is simply by clicking on your dashboard at the top right. Okay, this will take you to where all of your classes are. So I'm going to go into that sandbox class I made earlier. Okay, and now all I need to do to get my students to join is walk them through the same process you went through. They're going to come to the CS First website. They're going to click that sign in button. They're going to sign in with Google. They're going to choose I'm a student, and then they are going to see, let's see if I can show you. They're going to see this. It'll say enter your class code, kind of like Google Classroom. And then we just provide them with this code that lives right up here at the top. That's all they have to do. Now, if I wanted to sync with Google Classroom, the benefit of doing that is students don't have to put in a code. So if I have littles and they might struggle with putting in a code, instead of using this method I showed you earlier, I can enable that Google Classroom sync. And to do that, I'm just going to click on my teacher icon up here at the top right. And then I'm going to click on Profile. Once I'm here, you'll see this little area that says Google Classroom, and mine is already connected, so I can disconnect if I would like. If you did not connect earlier, you will have the option to connect. So that's how you turn that on or off as you would like. Now, if your students, again, are joining you through Google Classroom, they'll do the same first few steps. They will go to CS First, sign in with Google, but they won't have to put in a code. So that's the benefit to that method. Yes, I really do think it, especially with younger students, that new lesson we just went through is a great starting spot. If not, I think Code Your Hero is also a really good starting spot. That's why we do those. There's some of the more accessible lessons. They're short. Students tend to really like those. So that is where I would start. And just based on the age of your learners, really chunking it out, working with them. You know your kiddos better than anyone. So yeah. Okay, so we explored the lessons, we created a class, we showed how to get our students in. Now, finally, I want to show you where you can get some help. So we already talked about the dashboard. That's one of the great things that we see on the teacher side of things. But this is something you might have noticed when we were exploring earlier. We also have really great curriculum materials. So again, take a look at my screen and I'll show you this. All I have to do is find a lesson. I'll just choose a different one for the sake of demo and click on it. And what I see below the start button, I can see what lessons are available within that unit, but I can also see examples, which is really helpful. And I can see materials. Underneath materials, I have a lesson plan. Now, a lot of times when we get free lesson plans, I know they're not always the best. These are really good. So if I click on one of these, you're going to see how detailed it is. It gives you a pacing guide. It will give you solutions. It gives you definitions, a standards alignment. I mean, these are really, really good. And these are available for all of those units. I think that is just one of the best parts. Again, those are available just by scrolling down to materials under every lesson or every unit. We also have up at the top, earlier we went to curriculum and lessons. Now we have resources up here at the top. We click on resources. There is a collection of videos, ideas for using this remotely if your students are learning at home, a contingency plan if the internet is down. There is information on how to get started, video training. So I know I wasn't able to cover everything today, but there is a ton of information here. Okay, and certificates. If you've got littles, you know they love a certificate. You can print those out for when they complete a lesson or a unit, and I think that is so fun. You can also go to Google's Help Center. Now, sometimes when we go to help pages, again, like lesson plans, I know they're not always the best. Google's help page is really good. So this is a great place to ask the Google community about questions you might have. And we are actually going to provide you with a resource that has all this stuff on it. So if you're thinking, Amy, that was a lot of links, don't worry. Kelly is going to put this in the chat for you. So you'll have a document, a PDF with all of those links on it in one place. So you don't have to keep track of them separately. And finally, I know we only have 1 minute left, but I will stay on and answer questions if you have them. We are going to offer some more training sessions in the future, so some 90-minute sessions. So if you want more, Kelly is going to drop that link in the chat for you. So you are welcome to check that out, see what registration dates and times we have available, and learn even more about CS First. So thank you all so much. You've been such a great audience. You participated so much, and that makes it so fun. I appreciate you all. I hope that you go spread the word of CS First to other teachers and you use it with your students. And maybe I'll get to learn with you more in the future. So yeah, that link is in the chat now for our upcoming session. So thank you all again. I appreciate it.